Can a merit-based immigration system work in the US? His merit-based, high-security plan drew cool reception from both political leaders on sides of the aisle. For now, to get anywhere close to reality, legislation would need to be written and passed by a Congress that hasn't passed a comprehensive immigration bill in a generation. Trump's proposal. In unveiling the proposal, a brainchild of his son-in-law Jared Kushner, Trump said he wanted to model the United States immigration system on those of Canada and Australia. Both countries use points-based selection systems where immigrants get points for criteria such as English language proficiency, employment experience, and education levels. Australia, for example, requires a minimum of 65 points for selection, though the threshold can reach up to 90 points for some industries. Applicants can get family-based admissions account for roughly 1/4 of immigration to both Canada and Australia, according to their respective immigration agencies. That contrasts with the United States, where family-based admissions account for 66% of the roughly 1.1 million green cards issued annually, according to Department of Homeland Security. Economic-based. Could a merit or points-based system work in the US? In theory, yes. It might even be good, and that requires a lot of political will, not to mention bipartisan buy-in. The way nations approach immigration is often rooted in their histories. Australia's system, by the late 1990s, it had shifted to a skills-based model focused on bringing in immigrants who would improve the economy, said Abul Rizvi, a former Deputy Secretary of Australia's Department of Immigration and Border Protection. Australia wanted. The United States, by contrast, moved to a system based on family sponsorship in 1965 with the passage of the Immigration and Nationality Act, which abolished discriminatory nationality-based immigration quotas. It allows people. Transitioning to a points-based system would require a complete overhaul of U.S. immigration admissions. I think the jump to thinking about a points system is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 steps down the path, Rizvi said. You have to sort out. U.S. immigration policy under Trump is confusing, at best. Though this administration, and while the U.S. may admit fewer skilled immigrants in proportion to its population than Canada or Australia, that's not to say those coming in through the existing system don't have anything to offer. It's not true that just because you don't come in based on a selection criteria that looks at your skills, that you don't have them, said Teresa Cardinal Brown, Director of Immigration and Cross-Border Policy at the Bipartisan Policy Center, a Washington, D.C. think tank. There is actually a lot of high-skilled immigration that comes in through the family-based system. In the visa lottery, selecting immigrants purely on the basis of points, without considering family or local connections to the country, makes it harder for them to integrate after they arrive. That's why Australia and Canada both consider existing links to the country, such as whether a person studied there or has any siblings or a partner living there already. Further, we don't do that, Brown said of the U.S. And so another stumbling block for the US might be its system of government, said Kate Hooper, a policy analyst with the Washington, D.C.-based Migration Policy Institute and co-author of a recent on how Canada, Australia, and New Zealand bring in economic migrants. A successful point. In the US, by contrast, immigration caps are set by Congress. A points system only really works if you have an immigration system that allows you to adjust how the points are administered on a really regular basis, Hopper said. Australia and Canada. There are other differences between those countries and the US, too. For one thing, the US would need to solve many other immigration problems before ever reaching the point that it would seriously consider Trump's vision of a merit-based system. The point system, to me, is a piece of refinement way down the track, Rizvi said. If you haven't Tanya Karas reported this story in part from Australia with the support of a Jefferson Fellowship from the East West Center.
Raindrop, drip, drop top, top smoking, no cooking up. hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, up in the park pot.